Welcome to the 12th chapter of the book of Romans. Paul continues now and becomes personal with the behavior of the people he is writing to and his suggestions, which apply to us today. He says, "Then I exhort you, Adelphi, brothers, by the compassions of God, to present your somata, your bodies, living sacrifices, holy, well-pleasing to God, Theo, the logikin, latrian of yours." Logikin, logical, comes from that word, derivative, and latria, idolatry. Latry has to do with a service of some sort. The compassions of God. God has compassion on us as a judge, and he would judge us for what we deserve, the punishment that we deserve. It would be horrible. But we always want a compassionate judge. I've been in front of a judge for a few times for traffic violations, and the second time I was in a area that was, we call it a speed trap. It was on a Easter, about 6 o'clock in the morning, little small town, and the Highway 101 on the Oregon coast. Speed limit goes from 45, well actually 55, to 45, and then 35 to 30 and 25. So I knew it was there. I seen people get tickets, and I slowed down, and I got into the 25, and I got pulled over by the state police. And he said that, well, you were going 45 and 35, something like that. So I got the ticket, and I was all mad and wanted to yell and scream and get mad at the policeman. But then I thought, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to this front of the judge. So I got in front of the judge. His name was, Branford. And I knew that, judging mercy and compassion in the Bible. So I specifically mentioned his name. I'm standing there in front of him, and I said, "Judge Branford," I said, "I know one of the greatest attributes of a judge is compassion and mercy. And I was going through this place. I've seen people get tickets many times, and all of a sudden here I got stopped and was given this ticket. But I throw myself on the mercy and compassions of Judge Branford," using his name again. And he looked at me and he says, "Is $25 too much?" I said, "No." I was found guilty, of course, but the compassion, it worked. The compassions of the judge, of God, to present your bodies living sacrifices. If we are obeying him, doing the things that he wants us to do, even though it takes effort, and we have to go through trials and tribulations, that's what we present our bodies for. Separate, holy, well-pleasing to Theo. Theology comes from that word, being well-pleasing to God. And that's rational service of yours. Jesus was talking about the servant who would come in and instead of having his dinner, he would wait on the master, and he would do what the servant is supposed to do, not consider this something really great. So the service of us is a service that we are to do, and be not conformed to this aeon is the word, but be metamorphosed, transformed in the renewal of your nous, your mind. Be not conformed to this eon. Well, now, what is he exactly is he's saying, being conformed to this eon? Well, an eon is generally a period of time, and we are in a time, and how do you not be conformed to the time that you are in? Well, I think he is using this as a metaphor of doing things that aren't well-pleasing to God. And many people do that, do things that aren't well-pleasing. And this is not what we are to do in this time. That's sort of a Dodge City. If you've seen any of the old cowboy pictures in the United States, in the West, where there wasn't any law, and the men were going through, shooting guns up in the air and so forth. Eon, and that's sort of what we're in. But be metamorphosized. Jesus was metamorphosized physically on the Mount of Transfiguration, where he took another form. But here we are to be metamorphosized in the renewal of your mind. And I believe that's a daily renewal. We're constantly needing a renewal of the change, the things that we've done that are bad to the things that are good, in the trying of yourself in what is the good and well-pleasing and perfect will of God. Well, we try ourselves to figure out what God is wanting us to do. I start off with basically doing nothing. Because if I don't do anything, then if God hasn't really pushed me to do something different, then why should I? Some people seem to always be moving and trying to do different things to be in the will of God. But sometimes God's will is just to be where we're at, to do the things that we are put into the position. We're not in the position that we are in, any of us, through our own cognizance. We are put there, allowed to be in where we're at. A lot of times we're allowed to be places where we shouldn't be. And God gives us that freedom to be in these places, but to find the will of God, we want to be in the right place, the correct place that God wants us to be. It takes a lot of prayer, and if you have a desire to move or to change because of things that are going on that may be bad, that's not necessarily a good reason. A lot to find out about the will of God. For I say, through the favor, the haritos, charismatics, is a word derivative, being given to me, to everyone being among you, to not be high-minded, but above what you must think, but to think, to be of a sound mind. To each has God portioned a measure of belief. Well, a lot of times we want things for ourselves that maybe God will never had us to do. But what we want to be, I wanted to be a pastor at one time, back in the 1960s, and now we're in 2016, young man. But I wanted to be a pastor. Well, you say, well, that's wanting to do God's will. Well, the reasons I wanted to be a pastor is I wanted to wear a little white, at that time they were wearing these little white collars. People would see you and call you pastor, and you'd sit and talk to people and solve all of their problems. Well, I had more problems than anybody. So I wanted to put myself on a higher pedestal than what God would have me to be. But this is not what we are to do. To be where we're at is fine. I was working in a factory and office, and a man came in, and he is a janitor, swept every night the offices and different things, and I wasn't walking to the Lord at the time, far from it. But yet this man started off, I think it was Christmas time, which we're close to now, and he mentioned something about the church he's going to, attending, that didn't celebrate Christmas because it wasn't one of the feasts, and I didn't know what he was talking about, but I listened, and then he told me about being a Christian, and I grew up in knowing all about Jesus and the Bible, but I had walked away. But then a couple of months later, I had asked Jesus to allow me to come back, and then I saw the man later, and I told him, and he was real happy, and I was thinking, well, this man is doing what God would have him to do, and talk to me. For just as in one somity, body, we have many members, but all the members do not have the same action. I believe it was in Corinthians, he was talking about the body and the different members, and a little different than this here. And thus, we, the many, are one body. So we make up one body. The arms, the legs, head, feet, everything comes together and makes one body, and in Christ. And each one members of another. That means we are joined together in this body, one another. Allelon, parallel, means a parallel comes from this first part of this word, other. But having, now we jump down here, diverse favors, according to the favor being given to us, whether prophecy, so now he's talking about favors, the charismata, charismatics, the favors that God gives to different ones. They're diverse. Diaphoros, whether prophetian, prophecy, whether you are prophesying of the things possibly that are going to happen or the things that are happening and what to do and what not to do and at the time, let it be according to the ratio of the belief. Now, the analogy is the word, I'm sorry, I have to bring this up. Analogy is the word here, a ratio of the belief. Now, what belief is he talking about? The belief of the person listening, or the belief of the person doing the prophecy, or is it both? Whether service, diakonion, we have a deacon in the diakonia. Be in the service then. Do a good job. If you're a deacon, if you're somebody that's doing the work in the church, could be putting together everything like the chairs and getting everything ready for this sermon and the service, then do a good job at it. Could be a paid or not paid job. It just doesn't really matter. But whether in the didaskon, the didactics is teaching, in the didaskalia, in the instruction. Be a good teacher. Study hard. And don't just come without studying and skipping by and having a sermon that's more of just fluff because you didn't study, but take the time to spend during the day. And if you're teaching, he's talking about teaching the word here, I believe, then study yourself to be approved. Have different, I have a library behind me, a lot of reference material. I hardly ever use commentaries, or I never use commentaries except for maybe one that in one book was on the book of Revelation, but that's about it in 25 years. So I have the tools for teaching, and whether the comforting in the comfort. Some people can be very comforting, not being overly persuasive or causing an uproar, getting a person upset, nervous, but they have a way of comforting somebody. I don't have that gift, I don't think. I don't think I have anybody that I can remember ever saying that, well, there's a lot of comfort. Maybe if it was God's gift to that person. The sharing in simplicity. Well, sharing is an interesting thing. I was basically only child to my mother and father. My mother had a son and a daughter, and the son was killed in the Second World War when she was 18, and then had me when she was 25. Different father. So I'm not very good at sharing. I have never shared. Don't know anything about sharing. But here it's talking about spiritual sharing, the things that are of God, the good things of God, in simplicity. And it's wonderful to have somebody that would share with you and cares about you and just does it in a nice way. The being in charge with diligence. If you're in charge, you don't want to be somebody that's pounding people over the head with orders, but you do want to be diligent to get the things done. Sometimes you have to work around situations, work around people that are hard to deal with, but you don't just give up, walk away and say you're an idiot and the heck with you. But no, you have diligence. You just continue and think about it, pray about it, and the best way to get around. And amazing what you can accomplish with that type of attitude. The showing of mercy with ilaurotiti. Ilaurotiti, we have the word hilarious, comes from that, with happiness. Showing mercy with happiness. Well, if somebody has done something, generally mercy can be spiritual mercy. If somebody is having a hard time, then you don't want to put them in a harder time, in a worse place, worse situation by what we call putting them down. But you want to make the best of your mercy that you have. The agape, that's the godly love. Eros is the erotic love. Phileo is friendship. Unpretentious, the godly love. You need to mean it and not just say it, oh, hi, brother, but we want to really, love the people that God has put in our path. When you think about it, when I think about it, I'm 75 years old. And I've went through those 75 years. And the amount of people that I have met, that I have actually talked to and had a conversation with, not just going to the market and say, I want to buy this or that, something like that, but a real conversation in my life, it would be interesting to know how many people there have been that I have actually talked to, maybe hundreds, maybe thousands. I'm not sure, probably not that many. And when you think about it, anybody that has been brought into your life for a conversation is special. God has allowed them to come into your life and you to come into their life. And the love, the unpretentious love, if they're hard to deal with, well, we just do our best. Abhorring the poneron, abhorring the evil and cleaving to the good. And that's obvious to the Christians. We don't like evil. Well, sometimes we do get involved, dabble in the evil, and we are to abhor it. And sometimes we don't, especially with looking at things that are really bad, looking at a lot of violent movies or games or things that are on the internet that is evil, then we're to abhor it. But a lot of times we get drawn in, but instead we're to cleave to the good, find something good to replace the evil and grab a hold of that instead. It takes self-control, but that's what we're called for. In the Philadelphia, that's not the city, Philadelphia, but brotherly affection. That's what it means. City of brotherly affection for one another, having a strong natural affection for one another. Now, I believe he's talking about the brothers or the sisters having a strong natural affection, and sometimes you have more in common with your fellow brothers and sisters than you do the physical relatives. In the honor, giving preference for one another. Don't take the glory upon yourself, but think about the other person and what's the best thing for them instead of what is honorable, how you can get the honor, instead of looking at sometimes we do that. It's like somebody is talking, it was in a group, and they want to give somebody an honor. And who was that? It was Haman, who Queen Esther was going to have him condemned by the king because he wanted to kill the Jews, but Mordecai hated the Jews. And so Haman hated the Jews, and Mordecai, the Jew, wouldn't bow down to Haman and his God. And so Haman hated him and wanted to kill him. And so the king couldn't sleep at night, and he had the annals of the days of the kingdom read to him, and he read about how Mordecai had told the princes in the palace that there was a plot against his life. And the king asked, well, what honor did we give this man? And they said, well, none. Oh, I want to give him an honor. And that time that Haman came in, who hated Mordecai, he walks in, and the king says, well, who's in the outer courtyard? And he said, well, Haman. He's call him in. So he calls Haman in, and he says, Haman, if you have somebody you really want to honor, how would you want to do it? And Haman's thinking, well, who else would the king want to honor but me? And so he says, well, I would have put the royal robe on him, and then put him on the king's horse, and then lead him through the city with the second in command to the king, saying, this is the man that the king commends. So the king says, that's a good idea. I want you to do that for Haman. So Haman, I want you to do that for Mordecai. So Haman, who hated Mordecai, had to go out and put Mordecai on the horse and walk him through and all this. So the honor wasn't to who he thought. And that's the same with us. I mean, for one another giving preference. In the diligence, not lazy. Well, that's not hard. It's not necessarily easy, because if you get older especially, or if you have health problems or whatever, being lazy and relaxing is something that's fairly common. The body wants to do that on its own. It's part of the makeup of our body. But we're to be diligent to do the job that God had and the best we can, not lazy. In the pneumati, the spirit bubbling, that's what's in us. Start off your day reading the Bible. That's the best way, I believe, to get your spirit bubbling. That's like putting the heat under the kettle of water to make your coffee, instead of putting the heat under the kettle of water to make your coffee in the morning. Put the heat in the Bible, read the Bible, and you'll be bubbling. To the Lord, serving. As this is slave here. Serving is really more like a servant, but the doulos is a slave, a bondman. To the Lord, serving, but you're in a bondage. You're tied to this Lord and serving him. In the hope, rejoicing. Why? You have hope, and you see the things you read in the Bible of the New Jerusalem and the beautiful things that have, where the lion lays down with the lamb and nature changes. Wow, that gets you to rejoice. And again, that's from the Bible. In the affliction, that's our everyday problems, physical, spiritual, mental, enduring. We have to go through them. I have a bad hip, and the pain has gone from my hip down into my knees, and so it's like, wow, Lord, I'm 75. How much longer am I going to go through this in this pain? It hurts. Now I might get a hip replacement in the spring, but endure it. In the prayer, constantly attending to. I read a wonderful article once about if there was anybody who didn't need to pray. Who was the number one person in the world who did not need to pray? It was Jesus Christ. Jesus didn't need to pray. If he was in danger, he could call down a legion of angels and they would bring him out. He healed the people. He could heal. He could do all kinds of wonderful things. He was God in the flesh. And he could do anything. He didn't need to pray. But what do we see as an example to us? Jesus praying, always on his knees praying. So if somebody that ever needs to pray finds it to pray all the time, he says pray without ceasing, then how much have we lost by not doing what Jesus says? By praying more. I'm guilty myself, and hopefully I listen to this again, I'll make a change and do more praying. People pray for me, pray for other people. They need our prayers. If we didn't pray for them, well, then they might be missing something that God would give because he put it on us to pray for them. So we need to be constantly attending to prayer. Peter, in the book of Acts, went up. They had an hour or a time of prayer. You could do that. Set aside 2 or 3 hours a day and pray at that period of time. Oh, in the needs of the holy ones, participating in. People that need something. I went to a Mennonite church years ago. I love the Mennonites, very service-oriented people. And I had a need to, when I first bought the house that I'm in here, doing this, to working in the basement to put up a steel beam. And I had just went to that church for like a week. And the steel beam was 20 feet long, heavy, hundreds of pounds. And I mentioned to the pastor about needing to get it, and he says, "When do you want it done?" So whenever. We'll be there in a couple of days. And 4 or 5 men who were all knowledgeable in construction all came and cut everything out, put the beam in, and they took care of my needs. In the service of a church, if you're just going there and being a sponge, then that's not good. The churches need to be, or the groups and fellowships need to be taking care of needs also. The hospitality pursuing. I have a friend of mine who I've known for many years, and he just moved up to Oregon from Southern California. He's 80 years old, and I enjoy having him. I'm open my house and have him come, and he's a brother in the Lord, and he enjoys coming here. He lives with his son and daughter about 100 miles away, but when he gets a chance, he'll come here, and I enjoy having him. I pursue it. I ask him to come and stay. Then he goes and changes it. Bless the ones persecuting you. Evlogite, the eulogy, the blessing. Bless the ones persecuting you. I really don't have anybody persecuting me as such. But if I did, then I'm to bless them. Well, bless and do not curse. Well, you may have somebody persecuting you. And that's not a good place to be. And it's very difficult to bless them. Now, forgiving and blessing are two different things. I think you forgive somebody if they ask for forgiveness. If you don't ask for forgiveness of God, then you're never going to receive forgiveness. But now blessing somebody, God blesses the evil doers as well as the good doers. So we are to do the same thing. Bless and do not curse. Hopefully we will be an instrument to change them. Rejoice with the ones rejoicing and weep with the ones weeping. So if somebody's rejoicing, "Oh, I just had a little child," you don't go, "Oh, that's too bad. Oh, man, you're just going to have a horrible time. That kid's going to run around and run you crazy, and I'm really trying to put a downer on you." No, you'll be rejoicing. Had a little child. Oh, well, that's really wonderful. It's going to be a blessing in your life, and just love them and cherish them, and weep with the ones weeping. If somebody has a horrible thing happen to them, you don't sit there and say, "Oh, well, my football team won this weekend. Won the championship." Well, a lot of good that does if somebody had just lost a loved one or had something happen that he's weeping about. Don't want to do that. Be thinking the same to one another. That's spiritual. And possibly he's talking here to be thinking to the same to one another, no matter if it's a rich person or a poor person. We are to look at them the same way. Not the high thinking, but associating with the lowly. And a friend, we were driving down the street years ago when I was going to that Mennonite church, and there was a couple of people who were walking down the road in the country, and they were what you would call lowly. You could just tell they didn't have any money or anything, and they just didn't have. It's hard to explain, but they were on the slow side. But we stopped and picked them up and said, "Well, where are you going?" And we said, "We're going to the Mennonite church. A couple miles. Can we go with you?" "Sure." 15, 20 years later, that lady's still going to that church, and the husband died. And God that's just wonderful. Makes me almost want to cry. Do not become intelligent for yourselves. Well, that's easy to do also. Think you have all the answers. And We don't. We need to ask God to give us the intelligence, not through our own intelligence of being college graduate or having a lot of experience. We still need to have this intelligence that God performs and gives to us. To no one, rendering kakon, kaka, for kaku, for bad. If they done bad when they were not to go do bad for them. Thinking beforehand good things before all men. Now, there's times when I wanted to do bad for somebody that did bad to me. But then it's like, well, I'm not supposed to do that. So forget that. And thinking beforehand good things before all. Anthropon. Anthropology is a derivative for all. Good things before all men. So you go to the coffee shop in the morning, or you're going to school, college, the dorms, wherever you're at, work. Thinking beforehand good things before all men. Again, the Word of God gets us going that direction. If possible, as from yourselves, being at peace with all men. Well, sometimes it's not possible because some people just want to get in your face and cause problems, especially over things like politics or over a woman, possibly, over intellect, grades, and how much you know over another person. There's just so many things that can cause not to be at peace with somebody. Could be another country not being at peace with other races or other sex, all these different things. But if possible, sometimes it's not. They're going to get in your face, and it's not possible to have the peace. Not by yourselves avenging, beloved, but give place to wrath. Topon, topography, is the topo comes from that. But give place to wrath. For it has been written, vengeance is mine, I will recompense, says the Lord. Who knows if that horrible thing that has happened to you that needs vengeance and it causes you to want to do the vengeance is not a test to see if you will do what God wants you to do or not. It's not an easy test, but yet we are put into tests. God doesn't test us beyond our capabilities, and he doesn't test us to do evil. But God does test. If then your enemy should hunger, feed him. If he should thirst, give him a drink. For this doing, you shall heap coals of fire upon his head. I've seen right now, a lot of Muslims, Islam people went into Germany, and some of them causing problems and wanting people to become Muslim and becoming violent, different things that they would use to cause a person to become a Muslim. But yet, many are turning to Christ because of the Christians in Germany opening their doors and the churches to these people, and they're seeing it. I was listening to one man who's Iranian. He's a Christian now, and he was on YouTube, and he's talking about how he was at a church. He had a friend, he'd lent him some money and something, and the friend never paid him, or he sold him something and never paid him. And so he thought, well, I'm going to go to the church and these people, tell him about how bad this guy was. So he went there and told them how bad they were. And they all chipped in and they gave him money. He couldn't believe it. So he started going to this church. And he ends up becoming a Christian. And by this time in this seminar, he was in the United States, and he's talking about how much love, that was what made the difference. And his wife came from Iran years later, and she says, wow, something's different about you. What is it? He said, well, how do you know what's different? He says, well, you don't want to hit me, you don't yell at me or bark at me, you show all kinds of love. What's going on? And he told him she became a Christian, and so she became a Christian, and he, in this auditorium, said, well, you people even love your animals. And I laughed because I had a dog, and Arlo got killed, but Arlo, I loved Arlo. It's true. So you're going to heap coals of fire upon his head. I don't think this necessarily means you're going to destroy him, but you're going to give him something to think about it's going to go, woo! You're going to give them a reason to see Christ. Be not overcome by the evil. Nike means victorious. Be not victorious, overcome by the evil. Don't let the evil be victorious over you, but overcome, victorious, the evil by the good. So we are not to allow evil to take over, and instead let the good take reign. And basically, again, the Word of God helps us with this. He continues in chapter 13, which we'll go into the next seminar, and explaining to them now, instead of behavior towards themselves, behavior, it still is more or less to themselves, just a little bit of ways to authorities. And we'll get into that in the next chapter, and I hope you join us, and God bless.